All right. Hello, hello, hello. Um, I am your Bible big brother, Christian, here for day number 8 in our series going through the ESV Study Bible in a year. We have had a wonderful time so far getting into the text. We had our introduction prep days um, to introduce us to what the Bible is, what's the ESV translation, why is it even necessary, and then we had an introduction to the Pentateuch, Genesis, kind of understanding what is going on, why it was written. Um, Talks about some authorship and uh, deals with authorship, deals with dating, discussion about how it was compiled, who compiled it, all that good kind of stuff. And then uh, day 1 to day 3 went through the uh, kind of early ancient history, um, and went through that to make sure that we understood what we had going on in the primeval history, how God created the earth um, out of nothing. Went through the creation week and saw in chapter 2 a um, highlighted version of the events that happened on day 6 with the creation of man. We saw the fall of mankind in the garden as the serpent came in and sowed distrust in the Lord. Uh, After that, we got a few genealogies, and we're looking for the promised offspring who would crush the head of the serpent, but the serpent would also bruise his heel. And so we looked through the genealogies looking for that promised offspring. It did not come, but we did come to a man named Noah. And um, it was said that Noah would be the one to bring the people rest from their toil. Man was cursed after the fall that by the sweat of his brow would he eat bread from the land. And Noah was supposed to bring them rest. And in a sense, he did through um, a recreation where the Lord flooded the earth, um, killing all life on earth except for 8 humans, Noah and his family, shutting them up in the ark with different animals in order to start things over. And as he did, Noah found success in toiling the ground, was able to partake of the fruit of the vine, and but then we uh, saw the sinfulness of man come again. Uh, and with that, we got more genealogies looking forward towards the promised offspring. And then that led us to a man named Abram, the son of Terah, from uh, from where was he from? From Mesopotamia. Um, then went to a place called Haran. Um, and from there, Abram took his barren wife, Sarai, her name at the time, and his nephew Lot, and went to the land that the Lord showed him, which is in Canaan. And there he was promised that the Lord would make him into a great nation, that he would have descendants that would number the stars and number the sands, and that from his own body would an offspring come who would inherit all that the Lord had blessed them with. Now he and his barren wife uh, thought that it would be best to try to concoct a plan to make sure that this happened. And so he was given his wife's slave, Hagar, to mate with. They did. And out of that union was a child, a boy named Ishmael. But later, the Lord told him that this is not the offspring of promise, but there would be an offspring that would come from his union with Sarai. And from that, Abram, his name was changed to Abraham, and his wife's name was changed to Sarah. A year later, from that conversation, Sarah gave birth to Isaac, the child of promise. And once Isaac was born, Ishmael was kicked out of the house. He and his mother Hagar was kicked out of the house by Sarah, and they went to live elsewhere. Also, though, the Lord wanted to test Abraham's faith, and he tested his faith by asking him to sacrifice his son Isaac, who he promised him to, who God promised to Abraham, sacrifice him. And so Abraham went through with it. And as Abraham rose his knife to sacrifice his son, the Lord stopped him, provided a ram in the thicket to take the place of the boy, to actually be a sacrifice there. The Lord tells Abraham that he wanted to see and know of his faith, that he would hold nothing back from the Lord. And in doing so, he allowed him to go forth and go on. From there, though, he got the sad news that his wife, Sarah, had died after living a long life of 127 years. After that news, we saw Abraham purchase a burial spot for her from the Hittites that he was living around. We also were given privy to another genealogy, and it was a genealogy of his brother Nahor and his brother's wife Milcah. And from there, we were told that there was a young lady named Rebecca in that genealogy. And so it's from there that we are given a hint of things to come. And so we will start our journey this evening, reading Genesis chapter 24 to 25, to see what is significant about the young lady Rebecca and what is going to happen to this promised offspring. Is he the one who was promised before in Genesis chapter 3, who will crush the head of the serpent, but also have his heel bitten? Genesis chapter 24. Now Abraham was old, well advanced in years, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all that he had, put your hand under my thigh, that I may make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of the earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell. Sorry about that. Among whom I dwell, but will go to my country and to my kindred, and take a wife for my son Isaac. The servant said to him, perhaps the woman may not be willing to follow me to this land. Must I then take your son back to the land from which you came? Abraham said to him, see to it that you do not take my son back there. The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my kindred, and who spoke to me and swore to me, to your offspring I will give this land. He will send his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. But if the woman is not willing to follow you, then you will be free from this oath of mine. Only you must take my son back there. Only you must not take my son back there. So the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and swore to him concerning this matter. Then the servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, taking all sorts of choice gifts from his master. And he arose and went to Mesopotamia, to the city of Nahor. And he made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well of water at the time of evening, the time when women go out to draw water. And he said, O Lord, God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today and show steadfast love to my master Abraham. Behold, I am standing by the spring of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Let the young woman to whom I shall say, please let down your jar that I may drink. And who shall say, drink, I will water your camels. Let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. By this I shall know that you have shown steadfast love to my master. Before he had finished speaking, behold, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her water jar on her shoulder. The young woman was very attractive in appearance, a maiden whom no man had known. She went down to the spring and filled her jar and came up. Then the servant ran to meet her and said, please, give me a little water to drink from your jar. She said, drink, my lord. And she quickly let down her jar upon her hand and gave him a drink. When she had finished giving him a drink, she said, I will draw water for your camels also, until they have finished drinking. So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran again to the well to draw water. And she drew for all his camels. The man gazed at her in silence to learn whether the Lord had prospered his journey or not. When the camels had finished drinking, the man took a gold ring weighing a half shekel and 2 bracelets for her arms weighing 10 gold shekels and said, please tell me whose daughter you are. Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night? She said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor. She added, we have plenty of both straw and fodder, and room to spend the night. The man bowed his head and worshiped the Lord and said, blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his steadfast love and his faithfulness toward my master. As for me, the Lord has led me in the way to the house of my master's kinsman. Then the young woman ran and told her mother's household about these things. Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban. Laban ran out toward the man to the springs. As soon as he saw the ring and bracelets on his sister's arms and heard the words of Rebekah, his sister, thus the man spoke to me. He went to the man, and behold, he was standing by the camels at the spring. He said, come in, O blessed of the Lord. Why do you stand outside? For I have prepared the house and a place for the camels. So the man came to the house and unharnessed the camels and gave straw and fodder to the camels. And there was water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. Then food was set before him to eat. But he said, I will not eat until I have said what I have to say. He said, speak on. So he said, I am Abraham's servant. The Lord has greatly blessed my master, and he has become great. He has given him flocks and herds, silver and gold, male servants and female servants, camels and donkeys. And Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master when she was old, and to him he has given all that he has. My master made me swear, saying, you shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose land I dwell, but you shall go to my father's house and to my clan and take a wife for my son. I said to my master, perhaps the woman will not follow me. But he said to me, the Lord, before whom I have walked, will send his angel with you and prosper your way. You shall take a wife for my son from my clan and from my father's house. Then you will be free from my oath when you come to my clan. And if they will not give her to you, you will be free from my oath. I came today to the spring and said, O Lord, the God of my master Abraham, if you are prospering the way that I go, behold, I am standing by the spring of water. Let the virgin who comes out to draw water, to whom I shall say, please give me a little water from your jar to drink. And who will say to me, drink, I will draw from your camels also. Let her be the woman whom the Lord has appointed for my master's son. Before I had finished speaking in my heart, behold, Rebekah came out with her water jar on her shoulder, and she went down to the spring and drew water. I said to her, please let me drink. She quickly let down her jar from her shoulder and said, drink, I will give your camels drink also. So I drank, and she gave the camels drink also. Then I asked her, whose daughter are you? She said, the daughter of Bethuel, Nahor's son, whom Milcah bore to him. So I put the ring on her nose and the bracelets on her arms. Then I bowed my head and worshiped the Lord and blessed the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who had led me by the right way to take the daughter of my master's kinsman for his son. Now then, if you are going to show steadfast love and faithfulness to my master, tell me, and if not, tell me, that I may turn to the right hand or to the left. Then Laban and Bethuel answered and said, the thing has come from the Lord. We cannot speak to you bad or good. Behold, Rebekah is before you. Take her and go, and let her be the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has spoken. When Abraham's servant heard these words, he bowed himself to the earth before the Lord, and the servant brought out jewelry of silver and gold and garments and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave to her brother and to her mother costly ornaments. And he and the men who were with him ate and drank, and they spent the night there. When they arose in the morning, he said, send me away to my master. Her brother and her mother said, let the young woman remain with us a while, at least 10 days. After that she may go. But he said to them, do not delay me, since the Lord has prospered my way. Send me away that I may go to my master. They said, let us call the young woman and ask her. And they called Rebekah and said, will you go with this man? She said, I will go. So they sent away Rebekah, their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, our sister, may you become thousands of 10,000s, and may your offspring possess the gate of those who hate him. Then Rebekah and her young women arose and rode on the camels and followed the man. Thus the servant took Rebekah and went his way. Now Isaac had returned from Beer-lahai-roi and was dwelling in the Negeb. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field toward evening. And he lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, there were camels coming. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes. And when she saw Isaac, she dismounted from the camel and said to the servant, who is that man walking in the field to meet us? The servant said, It is my master. So she took her veil and covered herself. And the servant told Isaac all the things he had done. Then Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah, his mother, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. So Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. Abraham took another wife, whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Jokshan fathered Sheba and Dedan. The sons of Dedan were Ashuram, Latushim, Leumim. The sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Hanoch, Abida, and Eldiah. All these were the children of Keturah. Abraham gave all he had to Isaac, but to the sons of his concubines, Abraham gave gifts. And while he was still living, he sent them away from his son Isaac eastward to the east country. These are the days of the years of Abraham's life, 175 years. Abraham breathed his last and died in a good old age, an old man and full of years, and was gathered to his people. Isaac and Ishmael, his sons, buried him in the cave of Machpelah, in the field of Ephron, the son of Zahor, the Hittite, east of Mamre, the field that Abraham purchased from the Hittites. There Abraham was buried with Sarah, his wife. After the death of Abraham, God blessed Isaac, his son, and Isaac settled at Beer Lahai Roi. These are the generations of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar, the Egyptian, Sarah's servant, bore to Abraham. These are the names of the sons of Ishmael, named in the order of their birth. Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, and Kedar, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jeter, Naphish, and Kedema. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names by their villages and by their encampments, 12 princes according to their tribes. These are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. He breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people. They settled from Havilah to Shur, which is opposite Egypt in the direction of Assyria. He settled over against all his kinsmen. These are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham fathered Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Padan Aram, the sister of Laban, the Aramean, to be his wife. And Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife, because she was barren. And the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. The children struggled together within her, and she said, "If it is thus, why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger." When her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy cloak. So they called his name Esau. Afterward, his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. When the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man, dwelling in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once, when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field, and he was exhausted. And Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stew, for I am exhausted." Therefore, his name is called Edom. Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright now." Esau said, "I am about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me?" Jacob said, "Swear to me now." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew. And he ate and drank and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. This is the word of the Lord. A wife for Isaac. The account of how Rebekah became Isaac's wife forms one of the longest episodes in the book of Genesis, displaying exceptional narrative skill. The author highlights how God controls events so that after a long journey from Canaan to northern Mesopotamia, Abraham's servant is guided to Rebekah. The journey from Hebron, where Sarah was buried, 23:19, to Nahor in the district of Haran, where Rebekah lived, was approximately, or 24:10, was approximately 550 miles or 900 kilometers along ancient routes, a journey that would have taken Abraham's servant approximately 21 days to travel. A man traveling alone could go an average of 25 miles a day or so, faster than a caravan whose travel speed would be about 17 to 23 miles per day. See map to the left. Then, like Abraham, Rebekah must leave her family and country in an act of faith in order to journey to Canaan and marry Isaac, whom she has never met. Genesis' first audience would marvel at how God orchestrated the servant's faithfulness, Rebekah's positive response, and some unlikely events, that is, verse 15. For example, verse 15, to bring about the marriage. They would be better able to see their very existence as the result of God's guiding hand. Definitely. I mean, I've read this story before, many times actually, but I think reading it today, after going through the exercise that we were going through over the last, I guess, 10 days or so, going deep into the text, I feel like this I don't know, it hit different tonight, as the kids say, it hit different. I think partially knowing and understand, like I think yesterday or the day before, I spent a lot of time looking at the maps and stuff like that. Understanding a little bit about where things might have been, paying more attention to names, different journeys and stuff like that. And just seeing the guiding hand of the Lord. And also to seeing the faithfulness of the servant. And the willingness of Rebekah to leave her country and her kindred to go with the man that she had just met. So, very impressive. Chapter 24, verse 1. The observation that the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things confirms the special relationship between God and Abraham. Chapter 24, verses 2 to 6. Abraham is deeply concerned that Isaac should not marry a Canaanite. He fears that this will draw him away from worshiping the Lord. From chapter 9 onward, the Canaanites are frequently portrayed as being wicked. See notes on chapter 9, verse 24 to 27, chapter 10, verses 6 to 20, and chapter 13, verses 11 to 13. Abraham entrusts the important task of finding a wife for Isaac to his most reliable servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all that he had. 24, verse 2. To place his servant under oath, Abraham instructs him to put your hand under my thigh, verse 2. On the significance of this action, see note on verse 9. In spite of having left Haran in northern Mesopotamia almost 100 years earlier, Abraham refers to it as my country, verse 4. He hopes that a wife may be found for Isaac from among his relatives there. Although Abraham insists that Isaac's wife should come from his kindred in Mesopotamia. Verse 4, he emphasizes that Isaac himself should not return there. Verse 6, Isaac's future is to be in Canaan, for God has promised this land to Abraham's descendants. Later, Abraham's grandson, Jacob, will get wives from the same region. I mean, it's very interesting to think about the mindset of Abraham, who before has called himself a sojourner. Pretty much, well, it's not necessarily synonymous or the same as saying immigrant, but someone who's a traveler settling in to Canaan. And he is there. He has many interactions with different people. He has garnered respect from the locals. So much so that we saw during his purchase of the burial field for his wife, Sarah, that he was very much commended by the leaders of the Hittites, and even the man that he bought the grave from. So they liked him, right? Could be because of all the success that he had, but hey, they liked him. However, even though he was there and well liked and well thought of, he kept a distance from them, not physically, but mentally. All right. Let's look at something real quick. So, sure. So, Abram went to Egypt to sojourn. God says that his offspring will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs. Okay, this is talking about Egypt. All right, so he sojourned in Egypt. God says that his descendants will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, speaking of Egypt. All right. God calls this the land of Canaan, the land of of Abram's sojourning. This is talking about Lot as a sojourner, someone who, just visiting. Now he's here to judge us. Okay. He sojourned in Gerar. Right. Between Kadesh. I think we looked at before how that's a little different than the land of Canaan. Now therefore swear to me, my God, that you will not do falsehood. Or with my descendants. So you will do with me and with the land where you have sojourned. All right. It says, and Abraham sojourned many days in the land of the Philistines. And I'm thinking that so this what he's talking about with Abimelech. I think that's different than Canaan. Maybe not, but because I don't know if we before this got a full understanding of where exactly the land of the Philistines was. But I think it might be different than Canaan. Right. However, right before this in chapter 23, and speaking to them about the burial plot, he says, I am a sojourner and foreigner among you. Right? Hey, I'm not one of you guys. But can you give me property? Right? Everywhere he's gone, he's been highly blessed. And because of that, he could have put down roots, right? We saw the book of Hebrews talk about how he was there, but lived in a tent. He wouldn't lay foundations because he was, the book of Hebrews says he was looking forward to a land whose foundations is built by God, right? So he was there in a new land around people who very much so liked him and where he prospered. But his mind was not there. His heart was not there. Right? And because of that, he tells his servant, go back to my country with my people and get a wife from there. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. I wonder, this must not be the servant that he said before in chapter 15 that he said would inherit all of these things before God said that no, it'll be somebody that comes from his own loins. So this must not be the same servant. All right, 24 verse 9. The servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham. Since striking one's thigh was possibly understood as a sign of remorse and submission, see Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 19, and Ezekiel chapter 21, verse 12. The placing one's hand under the thigh of another may have indicated submission to that person's strength and authority. In any case, by undertaking this action, the servant binds himself to obey Abraham's request. Chapter 24, verse 10, camels. See note on chapter 12, verse 16. That's where, remember, there was a discussion about this idea that many people will think that this must be a later writing because camels did not exist at this time. However, there had been archaeological evidence that there were camels. There were camels at this time in this region, um, even though they might have been few in number, but maybe because they were few in number, that they were very costly, and so maybe only someone like Abraham, who was very wealthy, could afford or obtain them. Mesopotamia, literally between the rivers, was the Greek title for the entire region between the Euphrates and Tigris rivers. Here, Mesopotamia is a translation for the Hebrew expression Aram Naharaim, meaning Aram of the two rivers, an expression that denotes more precisely only the northwestern part of Mesopotamia. The city of Nahor, probably to be identified with Nakhur, which is mentioned in ancient texts that were recovered from Mari on the Euphrates, was located near Haran in northern Mesopotamia. See note on 1131. Nahor is also the name of Terah's father, 1125, and Abraham's brother. See chapter 11, verses 26 to 27, and chapter 22, verse 20. The use of the same name for both a city and a person is not unusual. Settlements are sometimes named after people, and people are sometimes named after places. Yeah. You know, Jackson, Mississippi, I'm sure it's named after somebody. Maybe Andrew Jackson, I'm not sure. And I'm sure there might be someone whose family or parents might be from Jackson, who's named Jackson after that place, right? So, same thing could be for Nahor. All right, so they were in Beersheba. You had to travel up this way to Haran. Came on back down to Beersheba. And Isaac was over in Beer Lahai. Chapter 24, verses 12 to 14. The servant, like Abraham, has faith in the Lord and prays for guidance. This is also, too, very important, right? Because we talked about before the different people that God spoke to, okay? And he spoke directly with Hagar, who is someone within the household of Abraham, right? And so we have now began to see the effects of Abraham's own faith and the effects of his faith on his household. And so the servant has faith like Abraham. He's probably seen and watched Abraham's life. And for the most part, we've seen Abraham be a godly man who treats his wife well. You know, there might be questions about how he treated his wife's slave Hagar and his son Ishmael. However, as we see, he, listened to the Lord in that manner, as far as removing them from the picture so that Isaac can inherit everything from him. But yeah, maybe that has an effect upon his servants. So you have that there. So yeah, his servant has faith like him. The conditions set by the servant reveal that he is seeking a wife who has a generous and caring disposition, similar to that of God, who shows steadfast love to Abraham. Verse 12. This idea of this steadfast love, let me see this on here real quick. Verse 12. Please grant me today success today and show steadfast love to my master. He used that phrase another time because I'm looking for something specific. Hold on 1 second. Steadfast love, steadfast love. Oh wow, that's the first time we see that. Steadfast love and faithfulness. Right. The reason why I stopped that is because, and we'll talk about this this when we get here. But in Exodus 34, when Moses records God introducing himself to Moses, he uses this same phrase. The Lord descended in a cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed the name of the Lord. The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, but who will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children and the children's children, to the third and fourth generation. So this God who is slow to anger, gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. This is within the mind of Moses, of who God is. And he makes sure that we understand that this is in the mind of the servant as well. It's crazy. This is the first time that phrase is used. Wow. But yeah, steadfast love and faithfulness. That God has shown steadfast love and faithfulness toward his master. He has not forsaken his steadfast love and his faithfulness towards his master. So that made me think of that, like, oh man, wow, this is, so I mean, I remember that language. Right? The specific request in verse 14 is not the ordinary way to ask for guidance. The servant might better have asked for wisdom to discern the best wife for Isaac rather than to probe into what God had providentially appointed. Nevertheless, God graciously honors the request. Cross-reference Gideon's fleece, Judges chapter 6, verse 36 to 40, as his means of directing events. Yeah, I was actually, that's crazy. I was actually thinking that while we're, as it was talking about that episode, I was like, man, wow, he kind of gives God a test, like, for his own, validation of, hey, God, if this is really you, then do X, Y, and Z. I was thinking, it's like, wow, he did it, just like Gideon, right? I'm looking for verse 14 is what I'm looking for. let the young women to whom I shall say, let her be the one. Yeah, this part right here. Let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. I didn't even notice that. I did not even notice that. Right. This gets into the discussion of the sovereignty of God. How has the servant understood who God is? Right. Because right now he is acting as if he knows that God orchestrates certain events. Right. And so to say that God has appointed one for Isaac, that's very interesting that he says it that way. Right. Because as I was reading it, I was thinking, man, this is very clever, right? Like the his test of finding the wife for Isaac, right? He doesn't go look for the prettiest one, the one who shaped the best, um, the one who um, has the most prospects, or the one who graduated from um, Padan Aram University, magnum cum laude, uh, you know, class of 2026 BC, none of that. But a woman of character. He goes and gives a test of character. Hey, my master needs a generous woman, a selfless woman who would take time to think about others and even be forward acting and thinking. All right. He asked for a drink himself. She gives him a drink. Not only that, she offers to, hey, you drink. I'll also give water to your camels. Right? So he gives a test of character. But while I was admiring that, I didn't even think about this part of his prayer, where he says, let her be one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. So it's almost like he's assuming success. He's assuming that God has already appointed someone, and that God will have a wife there for Isaac. He's just making sure, hey, Lord, just reveal to me what you have already done. Man, what a prayer. Let me open my eyes to what you have already caused to happen. He probably does this because he knows of the steadfast love that he's shown to his master. By this I shall know that you have shown steadfast love to my master. Man, what a way to pray. Very interesting. Chapter 24, verse 16. The description of Rebekah as a maiden whom no man had known confirms that she is a virgin, creating the expectation that she may well be the one intended by God to be Isaac's wife. All right. Hey, not only does she have good character, but hey, she's a virgin. Chapter 24, verses 17 to 20. Rebekah's actions exactly mirror what the servant had earlier prayed. Exactly. God's swift answer to the servant's prayer evokes an immediate response of worship and praise. Yes, it does. All right. This wait, what did I say? 27? No, before that. Verse 15. Before he had finished speaking, behold, Rebekah came out with water, with her water jar on her shoulder. The Lord was already working. He was already working it out before he had finished speaking. He's praying, open up his eyes. The Lord said, how long you want this to take? I don't even know what this writer. I don't even know what movie or show that it is. I've seen some clip. Sometimes I get caught in the rabbit hole down YouTube Shorts rabbit hole. But there's some clip of these guys in the courtroom, and uh, this guy hires this lawyer, and some dude's trying to sue him for some land or something like that, and he kind of meets the lawyer right there in the courtroom, and they're getting ready to get started, and the lawyer leans over and asks the guy who hired him, said, how long would you want? how long would you like this to go, to last? And he's like, man, make it as quick as possible. He's like, okay. Because the lawyer already knew. He's like, hey, we can either drag this out or we can get this done right now. And so, there's something that he found, legal mumbo jumbo, found on the papers, and apparently, uh, 2 months past due or something for the lawsuit to even have any validity. So, uh, so he already knew. So it's almost like, he's praying, and the Lord's like, hey, how long you want this to go? We can end this right now. Bam. Pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. All right. Chapter 24, verse 29. The actions of Laban, Rebekah's brother, suggest that he has taken on the day-to-day responsibility of overseeing the family. While Laban's father, Bethuel, is still alive, cross-reference verse 50, his lack of involvement in the narrative suggests that he may well be incapacitated, possibly through old age. Wow, I hadn't even considered that. I had not considered that. I just thought that was trying to show, hey, Laban has a taste for the finer things. All right. Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban. Laban ran out toward the man to the spring. As soon as because he ran out. So, okay, verse 28. The young woman ran and told her mother's household about these things. Right. After she says this, Laban runs out. And as he saw the ring and the bracelets on his sister's arms and heard the words of Rebekah, his sister, thus the man spoke to me, he went to the man. Right. So for me, and this could be, what is hard in Bible reading. And later we'll get to one of the articles in the back talks about biblical interpretation and stuff like that. But one of the things that is hard in Bible reading is two things. One, when a story is familiar or parts of other stories are familiar to you, right? And then you read a portion of the Bible that is less familiar. you start to read in the familiar story into that story, which is what I've done here. Right. Because what I remember of Laban, right, for me is a more familiar story when it comes to Laban's daughters and Isaac's son, and how he acts then, right? So that has colored the way that I see Laban early on, right? And now, and I am assuming a foreshadow. It could be a foreshadow, right? Um, and it could be a foreshadow to the things that I think it's a foreshadow of, or it could be a foreshadow to something else, or it just could be stating, right, that Bethuel, as the ESV Study Bible note says, Bethuel is not really running things and making the decisions right now. Laban is. Laban's the one doing the negotiating. He's the one that's making decisions about, you know, what happens in the household. Okay. Uh, you know, maybe this is not trying to speak to his taste for the finer things. Maybe not. So, but I hadn't even considered that it might be saying that the person that uh, that the servant would need to get permission from, that he would need to speak to, is Laban, not Bethuel. Right. So, chapter 24, verse 34 to 49. The long speech by the servant closely repeats much of what has already been narrated in the first part of the chapter. Additional minor details are occasionally included. For example, verse 47 reveals that the gold ring mentioned in verse 22 was put on Rachel's nose. Yeah, that was a surprise to me. I had never, as I was reading that, I was like, wait, what? I had never noticed that until tonight reading it. I had never noticed that. So that made me think, like, man, okay, what's the significance about it being in her nose? Is there any significance at all? Right? Because I just assumed, hey, you put it on her ring, on her finger. Um, you know, he liked it, so he put a ring on it. And at least he liked it for Isaac. Put a ring on it. But nah, he put it on her nose. So yeah. So all the sisters in the church with nose rings say, hey, I'm being like Rebecca. There you go. All right. Thank you. All right. Chapter 24, verses 50 to 51. The thing has come from the Lord, as the Lord has spoken. Rebecca's brother and father acknowledged that the providential nature of all that has taken place convincingly indicates that Rebecca should become Isaac's wife. This is clearly God's will. All right. Now, as I was reading that, when they said this, I was unsure how to take this, right? Because I don't know if this is said mockingly. I don't know if this is said like in faith. Um, I just don't know, because it kind of reads as if, at least to me, it kind of reads as if um, they are like, well, I mean, we're not going to say no to, you know, our daughter, sister marrying into wealth. So If you say so, the Lord set it up. Yep. You know, like I don't know. Maybe that's me reading it into the text. But so um, I don't know. I don't know. Also, too, I could be reading into what I have seen from Laban in later stories. So maybe I should, just let the text speak there. But I don't know. Interesting here. You know, but like I said, this is clearly God's will. Chapter 24, verse 53. The gifts confirm what the servant has earlier said about Abraham's wealth. Exactly. Chapter 24, verse 60. They blessed Rebekah. The hopes expressed in this brief blessing echo the divine oath made to Abraham in chapter 22, verse 17, emphasizing both many descendants and a special descendant who will conquer his enemies, those who hate him. See note on 22, 15 to 18. Let me review that real quick because for some reason I can't quite remember what was going on there. Chapter 22, verses 15 to 18. The angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time from heaven and said, by myself I have sworn, declares the Lord, because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you, and I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven and as the sand that is on the seashore. And your offspring shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in your offspring shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. And the note there says, the divine oath recorded in these events should not be overlooked, for it brings a climax. It brings to a climax a process that started with the conditional promise made by God to Abraham in chapter 12, verses 1 to 3. By myself I have sworn. The fact that God swears by himself gives to these words a unique authority, assuring Abraham that they will indeed be fulfilled. The oath falls into two parts, whereas the first half focuses on Abraham's many descendants. The second part concentrates on a single descendant who will overcome his enemies and mediate blessing to all the nations of the earth. I will bless you, and I will surely multiply your your offspring as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand that is on the seashore. Your offspring shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in your offspring shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. Although the second half of the oath is often taken to refer to all of Abraham's descendants, Genesis as a whole is interested in tracing a single unique line of offspring that will eventually bring forth a special king who will rule over the Gentiles. As reference to his enemies points in this direction. So why are they focused on his enemies here? Those who hate him. I'm sorry. 60. And blessed Rebekah said to her, our sister, may you become thousands of 10,000s, and may your offspring possess the gate of those who hate him. Okay. Okay, I never noticed that blessing. And may your offspring possess the gate of those who hate him. Which is very much like the gate of his enemies. Your offspring shall possess the gate of his enemies. I've never noticed this language at all. Your offspring possess the gate of those who hate him. I have never, goodness, I have never noticed that language at all. Possess the gate. I'm sorry, I'm trying to look and see. The other places where gate is used. Because that's too significant to be there twice for that not to mean something, you know? That is so interesting. Man, my mind's being blown tonight. And this is probably because, though I've gone through the Bible now, this would be my fourth time, the entire Bible. Because it is so vast, there are parts where, you read, but hey, I got through it today, right? And as I read, at the beginning of the videos, you guys probably can tell, based upon my voice inflection and the animation behind my voice, how much I am either engaged with the text or not. And so there are some times where, my mind can only take so much. And so, man, I have never noticed that though. Your offspring possess the gate of those who hate him. Another one, possess the gate of his enemies. It's crazy. That has to mean something. Has to mean something. Isaac went out. This is another divinely directed event, which allows for Isaac to be the first person to meet Rebekah, and when they arrive at Isaac's homeland. Excuse me. Chapter 24, verse 65. She took her veil and covered herself. It was customary for a woman to cover her face with a veil during the period of betrothal. I wonder if this is where we get the tradition of the bride with a veil. I wonder. All right. Chapter 24, verse 67. And she became his wife. This is another key event leading toward the fulfillment of the promise to make Abraham a great nation. All right. Reaching closer. So, let's do this. Chapter 25, verses 1 to 11, the death of Abraham. These verses form the final part of the narrative that started in chapter 11, verse 27. To complete this major section of Genesis, some additional information is provided about Abraham, concluding with the report of his death and burial. the details, most of which are of secondary importance and are included for completeness. Right? So before Abraham dies, not only does he see the birth of his promised son, but he also sees the consummation of the marriage that would make it possible for the perpetuation of his line to get that great nation that was promised. Right. Also, too, notice the timeline of when Abraham is promised and then the fulfillment, because he dies without seeing a great nation. He dies with only one son. All right. I don't even know if he sees his grandchildren. I can't remember if there's a way that they tell us that he meets Jacob and Esau. I don't think so. But yeah. It's crazy, man. So chapter 25, verses 1-4. Abraham took another wife. Only minimum information is given regarding Abraham's relationship with Keturah. Like Hagar, she has the status of a concubine. See 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verse 32. Also note on Genesis chapter 25, verses 5-6, which next note we better read. No indication is given as to when this relationship was established. It possibly existed before the death of Sarah, but this remains uncertain. Reflecting the culture of the ancient Near East, it was not unknown for men to take second wives, but this was usually an action of those who were wealthy. The precise status of the second wife could vary depending on the nature of the relationship. She might, for example, be the maidservant of the first wife, right? It's kind of like what happened with Hagar. Chapter 25, verses 5-6. These verses highlight Isaac's position as Abraham's main heir by noting that 1, Abraham gave all he had to Isaac, verse 5, and number 2, the sons of Abraham's concubines were sent away, verse 6. Concubines probably refers to Hagar and Keturah, who both bore Abraham children, although neither woman shares the status of Sarah, Abraham's first wife. The term concubine, Hebrew pilagesh, may give the impression that no former relationship existed between Abraham and these women. Yet, since their sons are publicly recognized as Abraham's children, some type of former relationship evidently existed. In Judges 19:9, the father of a man's concubine is designated as his father-in-law, suggesting that a form of marriage has taken place between the man and the woman. But the sons of Hagar and Keturah are clearly distinguished from Isaac. See also 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verse 28-34. Hopefully I remember this when we get into the Mosaic law in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. Numbers and Deuteronomy. Because there are discussions about inheritance laws. And I wonder if Abraham is acting in accordance with those laws. I don't know. I can't recall them right now, but it'd be interesting to think about. Prayerfully, the Lord brings it to my mind as we discuss them to see. Or maybe the ESV might make a note of it once we get there. Chapter 25, verses 12-18, the genealogy of Ishmael. Before proceeding to recount in detail the events associated with Isaac's immediate family, a short section is devoted to naming the 12 sons of Ishmael, who became chieftains of tribes in Arabia. This information confirms that God's promise in 1720 was fulfilled. Right. I can hear right now the song God of Promises, God of Covenants. I think that's how it goes, right? Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. I think the song's called Promises. Is that what the song was called? Yeah. God of Abraham, you're the God of covenant, faithful promises. Yeah. Sorry, I can't sing, but that just came to my mind. Thinking about that. Um, yeah. Even to Ishmael, he fulfills a promise. 25:12. These are the generations of. See note on 2:4, right? So we have a break in the text, right? Hey, these are generations of Ishmael. These are generations of Isaac. Chapter 25, verses 19 to 37:1, Isaac's descendants. A new heading identified by the expression, these are the generations of, introduces the next main section of Genesis. While these chapters focus on the immediate family of Isaac, special attention is given to Jacob because the unique family line of Genesis is continued through him. This section of Genesis has been skillfully composed through the use of particular themes and through the structural arrangement of the material into a mirror image pattern. Chapter 25, verses 19 to 26, the birth of Esau and Jacob. This section plays an important role by introducing Isaac and Rebekah's twin sons, who become the central characters in chapters 25 to 36. Significantly, the account of their birth is proleptic in nature. That is, it anticipates future developments in the story. Yes, it does. I'm gonna finish reading the notes, and I want us to notice something to see if maybe we can get some warning signs of what's to come. I wonder if they know that. If not, I'll bring it to our attention. Chapter 25, verse 20. The repeated use of the term Aramean and the designation of their dwelling place in Padan Aram, meaning plain of Aram, indicate that Abraham's family was considered to be Arameans. In Deuteronomy chapter 26, verse 5, a patriarch, more likely Jacob than Abraham, is described as a wandering Aramean. Chapter 25, verse 21, like Sarah, Rebekah is also barren. But the Lord responds to Isaac's prayer, and Rebekah conceives. There you go. All right. Abram married to Sarai. Sarai is barren. God intervenes. Now Abram is Abraham. Sarai is Sarah. And they receive a promised child. Isaac likewise marries a woman who is barren, but the Lord intervenes and they get two children. All right. So now with this, Isaac is the promised seed in a sense, but in the ultimate sense of the promised seed that the serpent was told that would be born of the woman who would come and crush his head, but he would bruise his heel. It doesn't seem like Isaac is the one because we keep following more offspring. And so maybe we can find our ultimate hero who would reverse the curse. Maybe he is within uh, the belly of the once barren woman. All right. We're almost done here in the home stretch. We're in the home stretch. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Chapter 25, verses 22 to 23. The observation that the children struggle together within her, verse 22, introduces one of the main things of chapters 25 to 36. The relationship between the twin boys will be largely hostile. Conflict between brothers is a recurring motif in Genesis, beginning with Cain and Abel. Oh man, I forgot that. And is or at least the motif there. I didn't forget that actually happened, but my mind didn't go to Cain and Abel. But yes, these little motifs are here to help us to connect different stories, right? So we get the struggling brothers motif, right? And is a constant reminder of the negative impact of the fall on human existence. Yet the divine relationship the divine revelation that the older shall serve the younger, chapter 25, verse 23, prepares the reader to expect that Jacob will have a significant role to play in the development of the unique family line in Genesis. Normally, younger brothers were subservient to the firstborn male, who enjoyed special privileges associated with the concept of primogeniture. On this reversal of human expectations, see Romans chapter 9, verse 7 to 13. We won't look at that yet. However, this deal where there is a child beyond the firstborn that God chooses. We've already seen that motif already play out with Ishmael and Isaac, and so it continues to bear out now, right, and become more fleshed out because, with Isaac and Ishmael, they didn't come from the same womb. Yeah, one was of the older barren wife of Abraham. The other was from the slave who could just have a natural normal birth, where Isaac was the promised one, right? The one that came from a supernatural. There was a supernatural deal going on there, right? Well, with these two, both of them come from a supernatural divine encounter with the Lord, right? So the Lord opens Rebecca's womb in order to be able to have both of them, right? So both of them come from that. However, one must be higher than the other, and with that, the younger is chosen. 25, 25. Chapter 25, verse 25. Read. See note on verse 30. All right, so we'll get there. Chapter 25, verse 26. Holding Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. The name Jacob, cross-reference ESV footnote. So the footnote number 3. Jacob means he takes by the heel or he cheats. Not only resembles the Hebrew term for heel, akev, but also has the connection of deceiver. To grasp someone by the heel was apparently a figure of speech, meaning to deceive. The motif of deception appears in a number of episodes associated with Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old. the twins are born 15 years before the death of Abraham. Okay. Which is recorded in verses 7 to 8. Occasionally in Genesis, for specific reasons, some events are narrated out of chronological order, as here. All right, so I brought this up earlier. I couldn't remember whether Abraham was able to see his grandchildren or not. Excuse me. But he is. So at least he's able to see the furtherance of his line. And okay, you know, I saw my son get married, saw him have at least 2 children. And so, hey, you know, I haven't seen, great nations, but, and I can number my descendants 1, 2, 3, right? Isaac, Jacob, and Esau. Right. Though he had Ishmael and his sons, but, looking towards Isaac's line, say, hey, there's these 3. And then he passes away. But he faithfully knows that, hey, the Lord will keep his promise. And, plus he did say, hey, 400 plus years from now, folks are coming back here. So chapter 25, verses 27 to 34, Esau sells his birthright. This episode centers on Esau's dismissive attitude toward his birthright. Oh, wait. Let me see if I want to. Okay, I'll do it. So I just remember there's something I wanted to do. I'll do it after we read these. This episode centers on Esau's dismissive attitude toward his birthright. While Jacob may be criticized for exploiting his brother in a moment of weakness, Esau is indifferent toward his firstborn status. He does not grasp the significance of all that God has promised to fulfill through the unique line descended from Abraham, of which he is the natural heir. Chapter 25, 27 and 28. The contrast between Esau and Jacob is reflected in their personalities. The manlier, outdoor-oriented Esau is loved by his father, whereas the quieter, domesticated nature of Jacob makes him his mother's favorite. Oh, the mama's boy. In Hebrew, the name Edom is similar to the word red. Chapter 25, verses 31 to 32. The Nutsi texts from the 15th century BC in Mesopotamia give evidence for transferable birthrights, mentioning one particular case in which a man sells his birthright for sheep. Wow, goodness. It's almost like lines of credit, right? Somebody, you have a house and then you borrow against the equity, right? So, you pay for something now and have to, pay stuff back later. And then, after paying all the interest, you end up overpaying for that thing, because of a lack of being able to wait, delayed gratification. So, yeah. Chapter 25, verse 34. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Esau was contemptuous of his special firstborn status. On the basis of this, Hebrews chapter 12, verse 16 describes Esau as unholy. Esau did not appreciate that this birthright was linked to God's plan of redemption for the world. Yeah. Sold his birthright for a bowl of porridge. Goodness. Let's read Isaac's timeline, this chart here on the page, and then we'll look at the thing in the text I want to look at, and then we'll look at the verses that speak to salvation through the history of the text, and then we will be finished for the evening. Isaac's mother, Sarah, dies. All right, so this, those who are not looking at a table here, 3 columns. Column number 1 is the event. Column number 2 is the age of Isaac, and then column number 3, where in Genesis it is. So we have special events in Isaac's life. His mother dies when he's 37. He marries Rebekah when he's 30. He fathers Jacob and Esau when he's 60. His father dies at Abraham dies at 75. And so then it shows those different things and where they are in the text as well. And as you can see, we get word of his father dying at 75. Early in chapter 25. That's before he gives birth to Esau and Jacob, right? So we get told in chapter 7 that Abraham dies. We get told in verse 7, Abraham dies. We get told in verse 26 that he fathers Jacob and Isaac, even though on the chart, which is sorted by age, right? So then there we see that he fathers Jacob and Esau before Abraham dies. Isaac's brother Ishmael dies at age 123, which we saw that also too before we saw the birth of his sons. Isaac sends Jacob to Laban in Haran at age 137. Isaac's grandson Joseph is born at age 151, and then Isaac dies at age 180. So pretty cool stuff there. All right. So the thing I wanted us to notice, okay? The thing I wanted us to notice. Now, well, all right, let's read it first. Okay. So Rebekah conceived, okay? The children struggled together within her, and she said, if it is thus, why is this happening to me? So she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, to who? To her. Now, this here is our third married couple where we know of, not just know of, but that we have significant interaction with the wife, right? So we had Adam, we had interaction with Eve, right? Or at that time in the story, the man, Adam. So you had Adam and his wife, right? Because it's not till after the fall that he names Eve. So you have Adam and his wife, right? But we have intimate, contact with her in the story. Then you have Noah. We are told by about his wife, but we don't have any contact with her. Don't know her name, anything like that. Just know that that's his wife. She gets on the boat with him because she gets on the boat with him. So we don't know anything about her, right? But then we get Abram and his wife Sarai. But then it's Abraham has wife Sarah. Okay, and there are times when God speaks directly to one party. For these two couples, it has been the husband. God spoke directly with Adam. And then after that conversation, there is a testing of the communication between party number one and what God told them and party number two. Okay? So between what God has told the husband and his communication to his wife. Then we see for Abram. God tells him this happens twice. God tells him of the promise to that he would have a child from his loins. Right. The next chapter, we see Sarah or Sarai come up with this idea of giving Hagar to him so that she can give him a son. Right. And then later on, when God says, hey, look, it wasn't supposed to happen like that. No, what I'm really talking about is Sarah's going to be pregnant. Right. Then the next chapter, God reiterates this and Sarah laughs, and God looks at Abraham. Why did she laugh? He didn't ask her. He asked him, why did she laugh? And so here we get God speaking to the wife now, right? And it doesn't say that he's speaking this to the husband, but he speaks this to the wife. What do you think might happen? What do you think might happen? Might there be a test of the communication between the marriage to see if party number two is on board or fully understands exactly what has been told to party number one by the Lord? Let's see. We will see tomorrow, whether or not. I think we'll see tomorrow. Oh, wait, we might not see tomorrow. Hold on, let me see. Let me go to this chart real quick. I'll let you know when we see. Yeah, we'll see tomorrow. We'll see tomorrow. We'll see tomorrow. I think so. Dang, I don't know. We might have to wait to Saturday. We might see tomorrow. Might have to wait to Saturday. But we'll see here within the next couple of days whether or not there is good communication between the spouses, right? So, when there seems to be a lack of great communication from what the Lord had told the husband, from the husband to the wife, I've gotten on the husbands here, gotten on them. So let's see if I'll be as harsh towards the wives if things play out as they have before. Okay. See, we get the same pattern. All right. We were in chapters 24 and 25 tonight. So let's go through the history of salvation, through the verses from tonight's chapter. Chapter 24, verse 4. The marriage of Isaac is important because he is the offspring of promise, through whose offspring the world will be blessed. The special provision of a wife for Isaac prefigures God's offspring of promise, Christ, receiving a bride, the church. Chapter 25, verse 23, Jacob is the chosen one, and Esau, the one not chosen, prefigure the age-long struggle between the chosen people and their adversaries. Malachi chapter 1, verses 2 to 3, and Romans chapter 9, verses 10 to 13. The principle applies in the Old Testament to Israel and in the New Testament to the church. Okay. And that is it for this evening. I pray that this blessed you. I pray that seeing God orchestrating things in his providence, and the way that the servant had faith in the Lord, and the way that the Lord came through for him. Also, too, how the Lord came through and answered the prayer of Isaac, that his wife's womb may be open, and how he spoke to the wife who prayed to him. I hope that this has reiterated God's faithfulness, his steadfast love and faithfulness toward those who love him. And so I pray that encourages you and that you are blessed by it. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.